Three teams in the SEC are on upset alert this weekend. Who are they? Stay tuned to find out. Welcome back, everybody, to Royally Mad Sports Talk. I'm your host, TJ Maddox, and this evening I'm going to be talking about three teams who I believe should be put on upset alert this weekend. Now, I had four. It was Maryland and Iowa, but by the time this video is posted, the game's going to be on and probably over with, and from the looks of it, Iowa's winning 44-7, so yeah, they're not getting upset this weekend. All right, three teams that are on upset alert are Florida, Alabama, and Georgia. And we're going to talk a little bit about each team. Let's first talk about the Florida Gators. They go on the road to Kentucky, and they are favored by 7.5 points. Now, Florida is averaging 36 points per game, and they're only allowing 19.8 points per game. They have 322 rushing yards per game, as well as 240 yards passing per game. Of course, their rushing leader is Emory Jones with 375 yards a game and 2 touchdowns. And Kentucky, they are allowing 31 points per game and only allowing 17.8 points per game. They've got 239 rushing yards per game and 202 passing yards per game. Their rushing leader is Chris Rodriguez Jr., 513 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. He's fourth in the nation in rushing right now. But given the teams that Kentucky has played, that's going to happen. So, and I'm not. Look, I don't want Kentucky fans to get mad and think I'm saying that they're not a good team, because they are. I actually picked them to finish second in the East this year. So I don't know how this game's going to turn out, how it's going to go. I think that Florida has a chance of getting upset. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I do think this is going to be a very defensive game, in my opinion. Here's why I say that. I don't know if Kentucky's going to be able to capitalize on Florida, because the last 3 games, Kentucky has won their games by 7 points or fewer. And they've only scored 16 points against South Carolina, one of the worst teams in the SEC, besides Vanderbilt. So if Kentucky wants to win this ball game, they have got to score early and keep pressure on Emory Jones. Bottom line. If Kentucky could slow down Emory Jones, and if Florida doesn't rotate Jones and Richardson, who is reported to be healthy, Kentucky has a chance. Now, I say Richardson because I think there are going to be some design plays for Richardson, for Anthony Richardson, and I'd like to see him in, because I haven't had a chance to watch them play this year, and I'd like to see what the talk and the hype about Richardson is, if there is any. I don't know. He may not even be that great, but I do want to see what he is capable of should he get a chance to play. I think Kentucky needs to be able to run the ball. But based off of what Florida did against Alabama in the second half, that's going to be very difficult to do. Florida shut down Alabama in the second half. I mean, Alabama took 3 quick touchdowns in the first quarter, and then they kind of slowed down and allowed Florida to play catch-up. And Florida almost won that ball game, so Florida's got a lot riding on this game. Kentucky does as well, because this game is going to determine, in my opinion, who the second best team in the East is, and then who the third best team in the East is. I believe the last time Kentucky won this game was 2018. They broke the 20-year streak or whatever it was. So Florida had a 31-game winning streak over Kentucky until 2018. But another fact here is Kentucky has not beaten Florida in Lexington in 35 years, since 1986. They've owned the last 16 straight road series games in Lexington. So, streaks is going to be a big talk this weekend, because you also have Auburn and LSU playing. Auburn has not won at Baton Rouge since 1999. So there's 2 big streaks on the line this weekend that could potentially be broken. But I think that in order for Kentucky to win this ball game, they're going to have to slow down Emory Jones. Bottom line, they're going to have to put pressure on Emory Jones. They're going to have to force him out of the pocket, maybe force a couple bad throws for some interceptions. They need to get some sacks on Emory Jones because Emory Jones can hurt you with his legs as well. I've seen him scramble, and he's got some moves on him. So it's going to be tough for Kentucky. I'm giving Kentucky a 35% chance of pulling the upset this weekend. Look, there's nothing negative against Kentucky. It's just Florida looks a little bit better than I thought they would look this year, especially the way they played against Alabama. And the majority of that is what I'm basing my opinion on. It is what it is. You know, just you can call a spade. But I think that Kentucky could pull the upset, but the chances of that happening are very unlikely. My final decision: Florida wins this ball game, but Kentucky covers the spread. My second upset game of the week is going to be the Ole Miss Rebels traveling to Tuscaloosa to take on the number 1 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. And this is not just my opinion, but this is several people's opinion. But these are 2 Heisman frontrunners that's going to face off on Saturday afternoon with Matt Corral and Bryce Young. I keep wanting to call him Bryce Harper. Bryce Young. 2 Heisman frontrunners, Matt Corral and Bryce Young, facing off this Saturday at 2:30. I believe... sorry, that was something else I was reading. I do believe this is going to be a very exciting game. You know, last year, there was a total of 111 points scored between the 2 teams. Alabama ended up pulling away at the end, but it was like an answer call type thing. Alabama would score, Ole Miss would drive right down the field and score again. So it would be back and forth for the longest time. I think until like late in the 4th quarter, Alabama finally pulled away. But I will say this. If Ole Miss had a defense last year, that game may have had a different outcome. I think Ole Miss could have beaten Alabama last year had they had some sort of defense. Now, their defense has improved drastically from last year to this year. Last season, Ole Miss was allowing 38 points per game, ranking close to the very bottom in the country. This year, they're only allowing 21 points per game. So there's a huge difference, a 17-point difference, 17 points less scored on them this year than there were last year. So there's a positive. They're also number 1 in the country in scoring offense, averaging just under 53 points per game. Ole Miss is killing it offensively. Matt Corral is a beast. He is extremely hard to stop. He can run. He can throw. He's a true dual threat quarterback. Alabama is ranked 4th in scoring defense, averaging 46.5 points per game. I'm sorry, scoring offense. That's not scoring defense. Alabama's ranked 4th in scoring offense and 46.5 points per game. So, could we see another high-scoring shootout? I think so. Alabama's favored to win this game by 14.5. That's about right based off of what happened last year. But, again, you're looking at 2 different teams from a year ago. Many say that Alabama's team last year was the best team that Alabama's ever had. People say that they've taken a step back this year. I think Ole Miss has taken a step forward. And I said preseason, if you watched our preseason show, I said that there's not going to be an undefeated team in the SEC by the end of the year. And this could be the one game that Alabama slips up in. And I'm not saying that because of the school to pull for. I'm saying that based off of what I've read, what I've studied about these 2 teams. And it's going to be a very good game. And I'm looking forward to it. It's a 2:30 CBS kickoff. It's a SEC game of the week. So let's look at some numbers between Bryce Young and Matt Corral. Let's compare numbers between these 2 quarterbacks so we kind of have an idea of what we're looking at. So Matt Corral is averaging 335 yards per game, and he's thrown 9 touchdowns and 0 interceptions after 4 games. He also has 5 touchdowns on the ground. Bryce Young is averaging 282 yards per game, but he's thrown 15 touchdowns, but he's thrown an interception. So Matt Corral is 2nd in the conference in passing yards per game, and he is looking for that to play off that on Saturday. Alabama's allowing just 168 yards per game, whereas Ole Miss is allowing over 200. So the passing game is going to be a huge factor in this ball game, I believe. I mean, nothing against Brian Robinson Jr., I think he's a great running back. But Alabama's strength right now, to me, is, as far as their offense, is their passing game. They've got a crazy amount of receivers. Bryce Young is very extremely accurate. And I believe that's how they're going to have to beat Ole Miss, is by passing the ball. I do think the running game is going to play a factor, though, but I would not be surprised to see both quarterbacks throw for over 300 yards in this ball game. But with that being said, bottom line, I like Ole Miss in this game, but I think Alabama is just a little bit better than Ole Miss. It pains me to say that because of me being an Auburn fan. You know, everybody says that we hate Alabama, we want to see them lose every game. Well, that may be true for some fans. It may be true. It may not be true for other fans. I, for one, I've kind of gotten used to it at this point. My wife is an Alabama fan, so if they win, they win. It's just another game that they've won. But when they lose, it's completely different. It's a completely different atmosphere. You know, the fans are so used to winning that when they do lose, it's very few and far between. But when they do lose, it's tough for them. It's heart-wrenching and it's gut-wrenching. But I do think Alabama's going to win this game. I think Ole Miss is going to hang with them probably until midway through the fourth quarter, and then Alabama's going to pull away, similar to the way they did last year. But I will say this. If Alabama plays against Ole Miss like they did Florida in the second half, then I believe Ole Miss could pull the upset. So I'm giving them a 40% chance of beating Alabama tomorrow. Which brings us to our final upset alert for the weekend. The Arkansas Razorbacks travel to Athens to take on the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, when you look at this Arkansas team from a year ago, they are probably the most improved team, arguably in all of college football. They beat both Texas and Texas A&M this year, albeit Texas was in Fayetteville and Texas A&M was in a neutral site in AT&T Stadium in Arlington. But you can't put that past Arkansas, however. I mean, you have to give them credit for that win. They won those games, and regardless if Texas is back or not back or whatever you want to look at it, Texas is a historically top program. Arkansas has not been a top program in the past 4 or 5 years. So beating a team like Texas and Texas A&M is a huge stepping stone for Arkansas. They've owned both of those teams too. You know, Arkansas is putting up over 400 yards per game and is ranked 35th nationally in points per game at 36. Georgia has one of the best rushing defense in the nation, ranking 7th nationally. They have the best scoring defense in the country, allowing just over 5 points per game. With Adam Anderson leading the team in sacks and Nolan Smith just behind him, this will give KJ Jefferson all he's going to be able to handle in this ballgame. Arkansas is going to need to be able to find a way to give Jefferson time to make reads, to throw the ball downfield. And if Treylon Burks can create separation, he could be in for a big day. JT Daniels is healthy again as well, so at least for now, he has thrown 5 touchdowns and 2 picks in 3 games. Zamir White has put 2 in the end zone on the ground as well. Statistically, Daniels has competed better in the first half than he has in the second half, however. He has an 83% pass completion rate in the first half, but drops dramatically in the second half. He's only completing 62% of his passes in the second half. So that could be a factor for Georgia against this Arkansas defense. Georgia is favored to win this game by 18, but personally, I think it will be a little bit closer than that. If you're a betting man, I would definitely put money on Arkansas in this game to cover the spread. They have a really good team this year. Arkansas is looking really, really good. And if they could somehow pull the upset over Georgia, in my opinion, they should be the number 1 team in the country, for one. And 2, that's going to put them on top of the SEC. And every other team is going to be chasing Arkansas. But if they don't beat Georgia, then they really can't hang their heads. And I say that, Arkansas fans, because you've beaten Texas and Texas A&M. And if you can hang with Georgia and lose by 7 points or less, then it's proven, or you are proving that you are a top-tier team this year. You're proving that you can hang with the best, even if you lose to them. So if you lose to Georgia tomorrow, do not get discouraged. Keep fighting, keep pushing forward, and you're going to see great things in this season. In fact, that could be your only loss that you see tomorrow is if you lose to Georgia. Because if you can hang with Georgia, you got a chance of hanging with Alabama. You've got a chance of hanging with LSU and Auburn, and Ole Miss. But I mean, again, that's kind of comparing apples to grapes. They don't really compare because Auburn and LSU are not top tier teams this year. Ole Miss could possibly be a top tier team. So we're going to see tomorrow. These 3 games that I just talked about are going to be huge games in determining where teams fall in the pecking order in the SEC. I think Georgia's going to win this game because of their defense and the ability to shut down the run. I think they're going to end up making Arkansas one-dimensional, and will be able to capitalize on that. So I also believe that KJ Jefferson is going to throw his first pick on Saturday. Now, when it comes to who I want to win this game, I'm torn because as an Auburn fan, we despise Georgia. We want to see Georgia lose every game. That's just the nature of the beast. That's how rivalries go. I would prefer Georgia to be undefeated, however, going into next weekend if somehow Auburn can beat LSU, it'll give them if Auburn has a 2% chance of beating Georgia next weekend, if Georgia goes in that game undefeated, ranked number 2, or number 1 if Alabama loses, and Auburn could pull it off the biggest upset of the season and beat Georgia, then that's going to shoot Auburn up in the rankings. But do I think Auburn's going to beat Georgia? No, I don't. I'm just saying hopes. I would rather Georgia go into this game ranked number 1 or number 2 than ranked 5th or 6th or 7th, depending if they lose tomorrow, how far they drop. But for the sake of the game next weekend, I hope that Arkansas whoops up on Georgia as hard as they possibly can and makes them weak and battered and bruised, so they do not go into that game at 100%. That's going to be the only chance Auburn has of beating Georgia next weekend, is if they go into that game beaten up, torn down, beat down, however you want to say it. But I am giving Arkansas a 40% chance of upsetting Georgia tomorrow, and I think this game is going to be more like a 7 to 10 point game than an 18.5 point game. I may be wrong. Georgia may run all over them. But I don't see them doing that to Arkansas. Arkansas has impressed me this year from what I've seen, very few from what I've seen of them. But I do think that Georgia does get the win tomorrow, but it's going to be a very close ball game. So that's it, guys. I hope y'all enjoyed watching this video. Those are my top 3 upset alerts for tomorrow, week 5 of college football. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, subscribe, comment below, share this video with your friends, and also make sure you smash that bell so that you can be updated every time we upload a new video. So until then, guys, I will see y'all tomorrow.